think there's a giant sex cult running the federal government, but they do. And a quarter of Republicans believe this is true. They also like Matt Gaetz. Doesn't make any sense. However, they're dangerous. And I wonder how afraid you are that they might try round 2 of what happened on January 6th.
Yeah, here's the thing. What you said we should go over, the stupid part and the dangerous part, because it's that ludicrous part, it's that silly part that keeps us from seeing that this has become an actual viable threat to our democracy. It's no longer acceptable to write this off as the rantings of some deluded people when we see what they were capable of on January 6th, and we see that that desire has not gone away. When we see that the former, now convicted felon, Michael Flynn, former National Security Advisor, is actually saying, yeah, we should have a military coup. Yep, we should. When we see the indictment that dropped this weekend on Oath Keepers, right, and we see the planning of what happened. And what was it, Joy, that actually kept the president from invoking the Insurrection Act? It was the fact, read the indictment, that no counter-protesters, BLM, Antifa, showed up and actually got into it with those insurrectionists. If they had, that would have been the trigger in their minds that would have created an all-out conflict that would have allowed the president to invoke the Insurrection Act.
And to stay with that for just a moment, to stay with you, Frank, right, because you had immediately some Republicans even who immediately tried to say, no, it was Antifa, no, it was Black Lives Matter, and try to shift it onto them. And it leads one to think that anyone who was either knowledgeable about this plot or who thought it maybe could happen and were crossing their fingers, hoping that there would be a conflict, actually, to your point, really believed and hoped that Black Lives Matter and Antifa, people who are anti-fascists, would show up. And that then the white nationalist groups and the so-called, I don't know what they call themselves, the Proud Boys, all of these different groups, some of whom have military members in them, who could do military maneuvers and were doing military maneuvers. They hope they could have a fight. Insurrection Act gets called martial law. The fact that that is a real thing, is that what Chris Wray was warning about? Is that what we really have to fear in this country in 2024?
Yeah, this hasn't, not only has this not gone away with Trump leaving office, it has gotten worse and emboldened Trump and those around him, who's now talking about coming back into power magically in August. They think it can happen. We better pay attention. Chris Wray said publicly in testimony, what happened on January 6th was domestic terrorism. So look, 25 years in the FBI, here's how you deal with a domestic terrorism threat. Here's how you deal with any terrorist threat. You have to dismantle the leadership structure. Yes, the FBI keeps going after, and God bless them. We're way over 400. We're headed to 500 indictments. Fantastic. We're seeing conspiracy charges. But they can't stop there. They have to dismantle the leadership structure. And if that means sitting members of Congress or people in Trump's circle, like Rudy Giuliani or Trump himself, then so be it, because it will not go away if they keep inspiring and mentoring others.
Michael Steele, you've had Donald Trump's friend, Roger Stone, use Oath Keepers, some of the same ones who are now seeing in these indictments as bodyguards. You've had Donald Trump be claimed by the Proud Boys, who now basically think he's their leader, and that when he says stand up and stand back and stand by, that he's giving them orders. Enrique Tarrio, who's the leader of the Proud Boys, claims he got a tour of the White House. He didn't say he met with Trump. You have the guy who started this, Ali Alexander, the guy who organized the events, who's now in hiding, saying that he got help from members of Congress to organize these events. He named them: Andy Biggs, Mo Brooks, Paul Gosar, who magically keep repeating all of this, claptrap white nationalist, black people shouldn't vote stuff and all of this. So your party is taken over by this. And I remember you once telling me that Republicans felt they had that with the Tea Party, they had a tiger by the tail, and they thought they could just ride it and that they could ride it to power, but they really didn't know what they were dealing with. This is worse than that, Michael.
No, it is worse than that, and you can't emphasize enough what Frank has just laid out. It's not just the stupidity, because we get lost in the stupid, right? People just kind of dismiss it, but this is dangerous, and it's important to note that folks like Michael Flynn are manipulative at the same time they're being dangerous. So this is all part of the narrative. Remember, the premise of this entire operation starts in 2015 when you had folks buying this idea of deconstructing the administrative state. They've now found the tools to do that. It wasn't just what Trump was doing administratively inside the government. It is also what had to take place outside the government. Mike Flynn is now saying the quiet part out loud. You have people who've amassed an enormous amount of weaponry and ammunition over the last, going back to 2009, 2010 in the Obama era. So the seeds have been planted. The narrative is now being reeled out to us. And the question that we have to make real for ourselves is this no longer about what Republicans are doing, because we know that if anything that happened post January 6th is on the hand of those individuals, not only named by the folks you just listed, you know, Proud Boys, whomever, but the members of Congress who have perpetuated this. And that's why the January 6th Commission is so dangerous to them, because it exposes what they have their fingers in, or what they've turned a blind eye towards. So I think now it's incumbent on us as citizens, Joy, to really ratchet up our concern here to Frank's warning, and to be clear about the dangerousness of what is unfolding in front of us, not just focus on the stupidity of it. Oh, yeah, child, you know, this, that, or the other, or, you know, cabals here and there. This is an underground thing that's becoming commonplace.
It's becoming commonplace, and and I have to say, Frank, back when I used to have a Dayside show, and there was a lot of reporting that we did on ISIS. I used to watch those ISIS videos. I wanted to know what I was reporting. I didn't feel like I could talk about it if I hadn't seen it. These videos that they show, which we're not going to show them, they looked a lot like those ISIS videos. They even had this soundtrack on them that I think was meant to sound vaguely Middle Eastern. It was pure propaganda videos meant to incite people. It looked very much like those terrorist videos. Am I way out of line for saying that?
They sound a lot like violent jihad recruitment videos. You're right. And yes, no one's being beheaded, but we are hearing and seeing on social media people being demanding that people be hung, right? That people be beheaded. It's out there, and it doesn't take much to recruit people into a movement. It takes a heck of a lot to get them out of the movement. It takes repeated exposure to sunlight and truth. And something Michael said, worth repeating. This is so much bigger than politics and the Republican Party and whether we're going to have a healthy two-party system. I don't have a dog in this political fight. I worked 25 years to uphold an oath to protect and preserve and defend the Constitution. This is much bigger than politics. It's about the future of our democracy and what it looks like moving forward. We need a national effort to call this out for what it is at the Attorney General level, at the White House level.
The last question to you, Michael, does Mitch McConnell and Kevin, do they understand that? Do they know it and they're willing to play ball with it because they think they'll get power in exchange? Because we're talking about the destruction of our democracy. We're talking about the Myanmarization of our politics. They know that?
I think look, you cannot be anything but clued into what's going on. They've had the conversations. They know what's going on. We have reporters on our air come on and talk about what they're saying to them privately and so forth. So yeah, they're more than aware, and that's what makes this so dangerous. That's what makes it so problematic, is that the men, especially the men who could stop this, aren't stopping it, because they're either cowards or they're complicit. And that's the space we're talking about right now.
I don't know if y'all follow No Casler on Twitter, but he has said, if you don't think that Donald Trump would burn this country to the ground to avoid the consequences, the legal consequences that they're staring at him, the future with the tax issues and the legal issues, if you don't think he would let this country burn to save himself and to seize power back, that's the only way he's truly safe, if he's back in power, you are not paying attention. It is stupid, but it's also dangerous. Michael Steele, Frank Falluzzi, thank you both.